Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Planning Board of Dobbs Ferry on August 4, 2022. We have 3 items on our agenda tonight. First, I would make a motion that we open the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? No. The first item on our agenda is 24 Eldridge Place, public hearing for proposed addition and site work to existing home. I would make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there's anybody representing the applicant or others that wish to speak, but this would be the time to do it. 24 Eldridge Place. You see anybody coming up on the?
Hi, this is Michael from Michael's Architects. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here for 24 Eldridge for our clients, Richard Berry and Leanne Ashkenazi and their 3 children. Let me just share the screen if I can.
This video's not even on. Oh, never mind.
Is that title sheet drawing up on the screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Just a quick general overview of it. It's we're proposing a 1-bedroom,
One up.
bath, 1-story addition, 486 square feet. We're conforming to all the zoning and variances, setbacks for the building, as well as the overhangs. So we're in compliance and everything there. At the last meeting, there was some concern from the board and the neighbors about a few items, including the upper parking area we're proposing, as well as some trees. So in this scheme, as I'm sure you've seen, the upper parking has been removed from that area. And we've also met with the tree commission, who's given a recommendation as well. And that's what we are in terms of revising the drawings and concerns about it.
Michael, can you speak up a little bit or closer
Yeah.
to your computer?
Yeah,
Because we really
sorry.
can't hear you.
Yeah, it's Peter, sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Are you able to conform with the recommendations of the tree commission?
Yes, we are. Yeah, there was 2 of 4 trees that they had recommended, so
Trees, yeah.
that's we'll go with their recommendation on that.
And you're leaving the 4 existing trees on the left side?
There's 4, we were proposing 4 trees, and they approved the 1 tree that was closest to the street, and also
They
1
can't.
tree that was closest to the wall. But on the one that was closest to our new proposed retaining wall is actually tree number 3. The commission had labeled it as tree number 4. So I'll revise that and send a note on it, clarify that. One of the trees here, the tree that's closest to the retaining wall that we wanted to take out, which is tree number 3. So just want to clarify that, the one that's closest to the new wall.
But of the 4 trees, 2 will be removed and 2 will be pruned, as
Yeah.
the tree commission recommends? Okay,
Yes, exactly.
thank you.
Sure.
So the landscape plan, though, at the moment doesn't reflect that, right? It just shows,
Yeah, this was a last minute. We didn't get to revise everything here. But
okay,
on this plan, there'll be this tree and 2 more trees here. One of the 3 we show in red will be,
right, okay,
yeah, and then one up near the front as well,
right.
near the front of the property. That's a large one. That's almost about 12 inches off the road.
Yes. And no, you have to, Speak at the microphone, please. And introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Karen Mahara. I live in 30 Eldridge Place next door. I just want to go over the trees really quickly. The tree commission did say of the 4 proposed trees, 2 would just stay, and then two of them were too close with the retaining wall and construction. I think the closest one to the street was supposed to be replaced with, they recommended some kind of replacement tree, and I just want to make sure that that's included.
Yeah, Karen, we've got one. You see the screen there?
Yeah.
We're putting in this one near the street that's the big one that's right near the street.
Yeah.
And this one, it's a hawthorn tree. It's a smaller tree that we're not putting right up near the street, but just back within the property line there. So there will be one, there's a row of trees, this is the row of privacy bushes, but then there's a smaller tree there to replace the one in the front.
Okay, thank you.
Are there others that wish to speak, either online or here?
Sure.
Yeah, just introduce yourself too.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Ed Maloof. I live at 7 Eldridge, which is the property immediately across Eldridge Place from 24. I don't know if it's as much a question as much as a request. We just saw these plans. These are different from what we saw for last month's hearing. And in that, as the architect noted, the driveway has been removed. I guess the verification I want to make is that that's a permanent removal, that driveway, because later on in the plans, it seems to say that they're going to create a driveway anyway for construction vehicles. And we just want to make sure that that temporary plan is going to be, temporary parking area is going to be removed.
Yeah.
And what's it going to be replaced with
Yeah.
is the question.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. I know when I got the plans back from the engineers.
Any chance you can talk a little louder? It really is hard to hear you in here, at least for me.
It is hard.
I'm sorry. Is that any better?
Maybe. Keep trying, but just know that we're having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, I may try to adjust my sound. 1 second, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, not sure why it's so hard. Is that any better?
Yeah, go
A
ahead.
little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, Ed, it's just, that area, the front yard, we're just trying to flatten that out in general, just so that it's, not so much of a steep drop off like it was. But that temporary parking area that's shown on the HEC stormwater plan is completely temporary. And I don't even know if you saw, but I put a big red note on it because it looks like there was parking being put there. That is just the only spot they can park while they're doing their work. And it's not being set up as a parking area in any way, except for temporary construction work for the stormwater.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I appreciate that. And I did see your big red letters. Thank you for that.
Oh, okay.
The question I had, though, was do you have any idea what's it going to be replaced with at the end? Are you going back to a lawn, or what's the plan?
Yeah, the green that I have on the plan is mostly lawn, so that's just going to be lawn restored all in the front there, aside from the new walkway, that goes in and curves around towards the front. But that's all front lawn here.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to make sure I understood that
Yes,
since I
yeah.
just saw this at the last minute. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Is there anyone else online or in the room that would wish to speak to this? No? No. Go ahead, please. No, please.
Do we just bring up any points that we have overall? Or is there like an order of going through the sheets?
I don't know. Just introduce yourself and
Okay.
and speak.
Hi, this is Karen Mahara again, living at 30 Eldridge Place, the direct neighbor on the side with the trees. I guess we have a couple questions with the newer plans, so I'll try to list them succinctly. So the newer expansion, the proposed expansion portion is a different outside material than the rest of the existing house. The existing place is brick, I think. but the new expansion would be a different look, it looks like siding or something, the like
Yes.
panel look.
Yeah.
Is that intentional? I guess it just looks, it changes the feel of the neighborhood. All of our houses have the same siding and for the entire house, and this is the one house that's probably the most exposed in the neighborhood, and it just, I was curious for the choice behind not continuing the same brick look and changing to like a completely different gray color.
It's the new exterior, we didn't want to just extend the brick, Karen. So that new material, it looks like wood, and it looks like wood siding basically in a gray neutral material that goes along with the rest of the gray trim in the house and everything else. Sort of an intermediate color, it balances everything. We didn't want to do more red brick, and we didn't want to introduce another new color. So on the elevations, the new color is really a darker color of that neutral gray that's the windows, the roof eaves, and everything else on the house currently.
Is there a graphic in this that would show that, like a rendering image, or is that not
All
something?
the elevations show it. Sure, every elevation shows those. One second. Let me just get to it. So the front elevation, this is the added part, Karen. So it's just this dark, most of the house has this kind of a neutral gray color, the lighter gray color, and the new siding is just it's a darker version of that gray, basically.
Gotcha. And then also on that expansion, right, the family wants to put screening along where our driveway is. And I guess I was curious, personally, as residents in this neighborhood, I feel like a lot of our land is pretty open space. Other houses in the place don't really have like bushes between themselves as much. And it kind of adds to that, I don't know if this is the right description, but a Hollywood white picket fence look that I don't think fits the current landscape. But I understand a request for screening if, you live there and that's your bedroom. But looking at the pictures, the side that actually faces our house has one bathroom window and like a door. So I was curious why they were insistent on having screening if there's not really much to screen because it's a wall.
I mean, like you said, that's the entire master bathroom runs along the side of that house there. So that was the reasoning there.
I see. Yeah, I guess proportionally it looked like a pretty small window, and with the elevation today, it's not really something we look at. So I was just curious what it was like from their perspective. Because having a wall of trees definitely changes sort of the open feel of our neighborhood to be more divisive.
Yeah, they're more like taller bushes, not trees. They're sort of they are bushes actually, but
I see. I think that's it. Thank you.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Was there someone online that wanted to speak?
Hi. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi,
Introduce yourself.
it's Richard and Leon Berry. We just wanted to say thank you guys so much for everything, and we're so looking forward to this.
I'm
Just
sorry.
want to introduce ourselves.
The owner, the homeowner.
That's the owner. Okay,
Mhm.
that's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Anybody on the board have any other questions or comments?
I don't.
In the audience or online, is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this application?
There's one more person online that wants to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry about that. Let me get my video on as well. I'm Leslie Gibson. I live across the street. Hi, Rick. Hi, Leanne. It's a lot of work you've done, and I really appreciate the integration of the comments from the neighbors. I had two questions, just to sort of make some sense of the only other change that I noticed that the retaining wall that is parallel to the Myharas property comes closer to the street. So I'm a little curious about that. And is that what's written on the grass that's being proposed? Or was that proposed just left over from when it was a proposed driveway? Just curious about that. It's just 225 point whatever proposed. I'm curious what's being proposed there.
Yeah, well, one of the things we were trying to do there was to, right now the front yard sort of, it levels off and drops down 7 feet and goes over. So we're trying to restore sort of the natural slope of the yard, but flatten it out in the area in front of the house. So part of that flattening out was was extending the retaining wall, sort of right where the existing retaining wall stops right about here, and we just extended it out towards here, just to contain that front area so that we could make the front yard a little flatter rather than so sloped in that area. So that was the reason for bringing the retaining wall out there.
I'm curious what happens. So if you're flattening out the 7, are you raising up the front lawn, and then what do you do with the slope to the street? I'm just curious, what does that look like?
The front lawn stays in front of the addition. It stays very similar to where it is now.
Okay.
But when we push back over here with the retaining wall, we're pushing back into the hill a little. So that's the reason we just wanted to extend it to contain that from spilling down into, towards the house, to protect the house basically more than anything from the rain and everything else coming down through there.
Okay. And the part of the retaining wall that still comes towards the street, that's is that above the grade? Is that below the I'm just curious what that looks like.
It steps, from the front to the back, it steps up towards the back. So that wall, that wall steps down as it comes towards the front several times.
Okay.
But just to stay above, we want that wall to be as low as possible, but still retain the earth. So, it's not like the wall sticking up way above the earth. It's really as close as we can get it, stepping down to contain that hill there.
So almost like what the low wall does, but just further out and it's higher because it's more of a hill. Is that what you think? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that 25.3 proposed that's on the drawing that you're showing, what's being proposed there? I'm just curious.
Oh, that's just showing the setback. The setback is 25 feet, and it's just showing that we are we're further back in from the setback.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Really appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from people in the room, or yes, please?
My name is Tamie Maihara, mother of Karen and living in the next door. I have 2 questions. First of all, the trees she mentioned about the new installation to screening our house and their house. That's because the original building doesn't have any windows to my side. And then they do the interior renovation and put kind of big windows to my side. So I talked with them, and your windows, I can see through from the upper, because my house is 1 story higher than their house. So I can see your living room without any intentions. So the owner suggested maybe we should put some small bushes to screen out. And that was a good idea. And then with this extension, I can't see anything from my side, even it's a little upper, and the bathroom window is a little far smaller than the original renovation plan. So on the renovation plan, we couldn't see just only a little bit of that. And so to make it healthier, the big trees, I don't think we need that much of screening of the trees, the new installation screening trees. And that was, as she mentioned, it's really kind of like too unique from the neighborhood. And so that's why if they are putting the trees because of that original window, that doesn't need to do it, I think. And the other question is the entrance. They have an entrance in the main bedroom that's new extension in the other side, right? Yeah, that one.
Yes.
And to look at the plan, the new extension is very individual. So I just don't know why they don't have any driveway anymore. And it doesn't connect to the porch they have in the other side of the house. And why they need the porch like entrance there. So that's my question.
Well, we were just extending the house and that side of the yard, and we wanted to have an entryway to the side yard and backyard through that part of the house, not just the rear entry out through the other side.
The floor plan, the new extension is very, very independent. There's only one door to access to the original house, and also that bathroom and walk-in closet, and the entrance on the other side, very independent. That's why I was curious. That's why he's so independent from the others. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Any other comments from the board?
I'm just curious, this project went before the AHRB, right?
We are going before the AHRB on the 8th, next Monday.
Any other comments from the board? I think.
I don't have any.
Change is always interesting, but I think this is something that conforms to the rules of the village and so on. So I think we can move forward. If any board members have any comments, Rob, anything? Okay, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I do have a resolution here, which somebody's got to figure out how to make these things short.
And
We can let Valerie read it.
we can do the
She's very good at
I
it.
can get Valerie to read it.
AHRB.
Yeah, so I mean, if the board wants to pass the resolution before the AHRB gets their approval, then the only issue that you risk, is that if for some reason they do make changes, that changes site plan, then they would have to go back to this board. So you could potentially just adjourn the application for one more month with the intention to approve the resolution at next month's meeting. This would also give them the ability to update site plans with the tree removal and the tree planting plan as recommended by the tree commission.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to add another month to this. I personally like this application, but I feel like it's a little funny to do it before the site plan has been amended and before the AHRB has seen it. But
Yeah, just that one tree that would be added there. That'd be a long time for us just for that a small change like that, I'm afraid.
It seems unlikely that the AHRB is going to have an issue that's going to affect the site plan.
Yeah.
In this case. If they do, does it automatically just kick back to us and we have to start at the beginning, or?
Yes, it'll be sent back. If the massing changes or anything, it will have to come back to you.
Oh, either way.
If the massing changes, not if the siding or something, that's you.
But Michael, the massing
Yeah,
is not
not
changing.
not just a window here and a door there. I mean,
Right.
If you're going to proceed that way, then the resolution ought to reference that if something at the AHRB requires the board to reopen it, it'll be sent back.
okay,
I mean,
all right.
if we're not waiting.
Can you capture that?
Yeah, Dan, would you recommend that it would go under the conditions, I guess, just general conditions of approval?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, I'm gonna read the first page and the last page of this.
Mr. Chairman, there are a couple other conditions that you might want to add to the resolution. So when you get to the conditions, I'm happy to discuss those. If you, I mean, I can
Just have
discuss
Valerie
them now.
read it with the adjustments.
Do you mind, Valerie?
Yeah, I mean, I can read them if you read the resolution if you prefer.
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to read the resolution and then add in those few other conditions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm not gonna read it all.
Okay. So would you like me to read it or do you want to read it?
I don't want to read it at all.
And let's
Okay, so
let
then we'll
Valerie
read
read
it.
it.
All right, well,
Okay. All right.
no reflection.
So whereas Richard Berry is seeking site plan approval to renovate an existing one-story building, the proposed site work includes new main entryway, driveway steps, regrading, and the installation of the engineered retaining walls. Whereas the project is classified under the State Environmental Quality Review Act as a type 2 action. Whereas the planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on August 4th, 2022, and it was concluded on August 4th, 2022, during which time all those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity to be heard and provide written comments. The planning board carefully examined and considered materials submitted by the applicant. The site plan application is dated June 14th. The site plans dated July 19th, 2022. And the short environmental assessment form dated June 15th, 2022. Therefore, be it resolved, the planning board of the Village of Tops Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasons set forth below, the application for site plan approval is granted, subject to the following conditions. One, the approved plans, and it lists the approved plans dated July 19, 2022, as well as the stormwater management plan. The second condition is where we will include the condition that if the applicant receives a AHRB approval and there are changes to the site plan, that the applicant needs to seek a site plan amendment. The other conditions that we're going to add specific to this application include that the applicant must address to the full satisfaction of the village engineer all outstanding stormwater and stormwater maintenance agreement and engineering issues. Specifically, we identified in the August 4th, 2022 engineering letter that the applicant must demonstrate that the proposed planting plan must meet the replacement of 50% of the total aggregate diameter of trees proposed for removal with new trees as per section 300-51I in the zoning chapter. The applicant must adhere to the recommendations of the tree commission letter dated July 27th, 2022.
Okay.
I move that. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
All right, good luck.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2 on our agenda, 20 Laurel Hill Road, pre-submission conference for proposed patio repair, including addition of stone wall. It does not sound like the biggest thing in the world.
Is there someone to
Does
present?
anybody? Okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Wonderful. All right, my name is Casey Gaynor. I'm the owner of 20 Laurel Hill, and we're trying to get a permit to repair and replace our patio that was destroyed during Irma. I can show you the plans if I share my, let's see. These are the plans done by the landscape architect. There was an existing deck that was part of the back of the house that collapsed during Irma. Once it fell down under the deck was an existing patio, and we're just adding stone walls to the patio.
Yeah, sorry about that, but
So if the existing patio have the same footprint as the new patio?
No, the existing patio is probably 3 or 4 feet shorter than the new patio. It didn't extend to the sides of the house. It ended probably a few feet before it, and so we extended it to the sides and made it a square.
I'm trying
So is there enough new impermeable surface? Is that why this is in front of us?
Yes.
One thing, if I might say, that wasn't clear that I noted in my memo, it just, noted removal of a wood deck / patio, and I assumed it was an open jointed wood deck, pervious surface. So are you saying that there is a impervious patio?
Yeah, that was not part of the original plans. We didn't even know it was there. There was a wood deck that's this dotted line on the plans, and under that deck it was built right on top of a patio that was never part of the original plans. We didn't even know it was there until the deck came out.
Okay, so if that just gets clarified maybe a little more clearly, that'll actually negate a couple of the comments we had. And I think there would be just a negligible increase in impervious area, if that's the case.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board, questions?
No, and it sounds like it's not, looking at the zoning chart, it seems like it's not actually going to even be close to the coverage limit, right, of 40%, and they're proposing 21.3, even with the new patio. Is that right? Am I reading that correctly?
No, it's hard to tell. I can't tell where the old patio is.
I'm just looking at the zoning chart.
Yeah, that's what I see down here, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a pre-submission conference. I would move we call for a public hearing in our next meeting.
Well, I have a question. If the total new impervious surface, according to this item here, is 25 square feet, do we even need to be looking at this?
It's for that, but it's more for the movement of soil, more than 300 cubic feet of
Okay.
soil.
Okay. That's
When
the
you do
trigger.
the walls and you do that surface, that's what it was for.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's call for a public hearing.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess I think though that there should be, because is this completely level? There's no topography at all shown on the
Yeah, it's completely level.
site plan. But I assume one of our you're going to submit a full set of drawings, because I'm sure that we require that topography be shown, right, on our site plans. I think isn't it one of the things that has to be shown?
I did ask for grading to be, called out on the plans. So we do have a memo, so I think that, and also to kind of show the entire parcel and sediment and erosion control
Right.
would be important. So it just needs a little,
So that's all in your memo?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
That's
You acknowledge seeing the memo from their consulting engineer?
I don't believe so.
I emailed it to the landscape architect
Oh.
today. 'Cause I know they were out late, these two memos
Okay.
tonight, so.
All right.
And then what's going on with that kitchen?
So just if you can confirm with your landscape architect that she received the memo.
Okay, I will.
Good.
And is there exterior lighting proposed?
Eventually. Originally, the lighting we wanted wasn't in stock. It'll just be small LEDs in the stone wall.
Well, eventually, this would be a good time to, to do it.
Also, it shows a proposed stone outdoor kitchen.
Just like it's a concrete wall, just with the barbecue sitting in it.
Okay, so there's no plumbing going out there?
No,
There's no
no.
electric
No
going out
electric
there?
or gas
No.
or anything. Okay. That might be helpful to be noted, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I don't see an issue here. It just seems like an incomplete, it's just basically this one drawing, right? Is the entire thing. And I think you should just look at the landscape architect should look at the submission requirements and make sure that all the drawings that are typically required for this are submitted before the next, before the public hearing that we're about to call for, or that did call for already, I guess.
Right.
There was a survey submitted, but I don't think there was any topography on the survey. And, maybe just to quickly give you an overview of what I asked for. I asked to, better define the impervious area, decreases and increases, show the entire parcel with construction access to get to the rear.
Right.
Patio, show the limit of disturbance, show grading for the proposed patio and surrounding areas.
Right.
Sediment erosion controls and sediment erosion control plan, essentially. I had comments on the sizing of the dry well, but it is just, in fact, 25 square feet increase. That may not be needed. But I wouldn't, I don't know if they have topography. We could probably, landscape architect could maybe just do some kind of relative topo, not necessarily, or maybe use some aerial topo. I'm not sure we need like a really detailed topo plan.
Do you need to know the material of the stone?
I think they do have details on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was in everything I submitted, I believe.
And really for us, from an engineering point of view, just the, that it's impervious is really what we need to know. But they do have a paving detail.
Okay. Okay, asking the applicant, is it clear what steps are necessary? We'll call for a public hearing at the next meeting and hopefully go forward from there, but be helpful to deal with the comments you've heard tonight on a timely basis so that we can do that next meeting.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Well, then we should continue the public hearing till the next meeting.
Well, this is a pre-submission.
This is a
wasn't it?
pre-submission.
Yeah,
So
so
we
we,
already voted on a public hearing.
yeah, so we're all set.
Yeah, so we just continue that. Okay,
Okay,
all right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Don't want to close it.
All right.
Item number 3 on our agenda is a discussion of consolidation of AHRB and the planning board, led by our.
Sure. All right, so I provided everyone a memo. Basically, there has been, and I think I believe this full board is aware that there have been discussions at the village board of consolidating the two boards, the AHRB and the planning board. So we've had there was some like committee, I'm gonna put that in loose terms, but we pulled together, the chairs of the AHRB and the planning board, as well as some village board members, as well as Rob and Steve Tilley to get their opinions on the thoughts and process, and also worked with Dan closely in the building department, and also Lori Lee to review how the process procedures would work. So we're here tonight to kind of talk to the board and get your opinions and your thoughts on consolidation of the two boards and the proposed process that we're thinking about recommending to the village board. Let me just talk a little bit, I'll just kind of run through everything and then I'll open it up for discussion and questions. But basically, by consolidating the planning board and AHRB, the functions of the AHRB would transfer to the planning board. So the village would no longer have two separate boards, it would be one board currently serving as both AHRB and planning board. All applications that require both planning board, site plan approval, subdivision approval, special permit approval, that also require architectural review approvals would appear before this board, and you would look at the architecture as well as those other elements, site plan or subdivision. Then the current AHRB, specifically AHRB work that does not involve any sort of planning board approval, such as facade changes, porches, canopies, decks, those they would require review from this board, but we are suggesting that we create a subcommittee of the planning board. So this would allow for that subcommittee to meet and then review those particular applications and then send a recommendation to this board to say, we looked at this application, we agree with the, or we've asked for some decisions recommendations to be changed in the application. That would come back to this board. The board would review that while you hear the presentation, and then hopefully that will cut down on the overall review time for those particular applications. And again, the actual process of this subcommittee can be ironed out a little bit more, but that's generally the thought of that. Then when you...
Before you move on,
Yeah.
the subcommittee, would that have to be subject to daylight rules and all that? I mean,
So the subcommittee would not be a quorum, so it would just be basically, if right now, it would be 2 of the 5 board members, and they would meet with the applicant. It's not subject to open meetings law. It would just be reviewing the application. That's why you would still have, whatever public hearings required, but this would at least hopefully deal with some of the details and discussions that might occur at an AHRB, so that it cuts down on the overall time at planning board meetings. That is up to the board. You can also just say, you don't want to have a subcommittee, and you'll just take those particular applications as a normal application before the planning.
could the subcommittee do it via virtually?
Yes.
So
yes.
they don't have to meet in person?
That's correct. So then the other AHRB applications we are suggesting would not require board approval. And these would fall under replacing windows and doors, installing fences, walls, and signs not located in historic districts, and awnings not located in historic districts. These applications would be processed through the building department. They're very similar to what takes place now for fences. And this would basically, it would follow, the building department would review it for established guidelines in the district, or also the sign requirements. The building department will require any applicant seeking placements, and then also installations of fences, walls, and signs to send out the neighbor notification, similar to what you do now for fences and walls. And the building department will still be able to send applications to this board if they have concerns with, that they don't meet the established guidelines or some of the criteria in the zoning code. And then the building department would also be able to obtain recommendations from the board, as they review those applications as well. That will reduce the applications before this board's agenda, and we feel that, some of these applications are pretty straightforward, and they probably don't necessarily need AHRB approval. And then the other area of applications would really focus on near historic districts. And those would definitely come before this board, and this board would be able to obtain any, any particular expertise that you see fit to help review those particular applications. In some communities, they do have a separate, historic, commission or historic board. But at this point in time, when we looked at the current applications, and at this point in time, there's only been one application in the last 2 years. So until you start seeing a number of applications taking place, then at that point, if the village decides they want to establish its own board, then they can consider that at that time. So, and then the last thought in this is that since right now you have a 5-member board, you can go up to a 7-member board. That would help with some of the, helping with the subcommittee, and also having people take turns reviewing those particular applications. But then it would also allow, if for some reason any current AHRB members were interested in also continuing to serve, that they could potentially continue to serve as well. So that, in a nutshell, is what is being proposed and the process. And overall, if you move forward with what's being proposed, you would see basically, on average, maybe another application or two a month.
That's not a big deal. Have you seen a setup like this in any other village?
Yes, I know the Village of Austining has a combined board. The Town of Austining has a combined board. Just trying to think. I don't have it with me. I can send it to the board. We went through and we found a number of communities that have combined boards and how they sort out both AHRB and planning.
Did you touch base with them to see if they had any recommendations, comments, unintended consequences?
So I think what you find is I think it's not really unintended consequences. I think the only thing that is really important is to continue having that review of the site plan. Because sometimes when you have the combined boards, it just goes right to architecture. But other than that, I mean, there hasn't really been too much of an issue. Actually, I work in the Town of Austining, and one of the things that we are noticing is that right now they don't require site plan approval for single-family homes, but just ARB. But what we're finding is that while they're reviewing ARB for single-family homes, they're also starting to discuss site plan issues. So it's like the opposite effect that you have here. And so now they're thinking of changing their zoning code to require site plan approval along with AHRB approval because of that combined effect that they're finding.
So could you just review again, they're basically 3 tracks, right?
Right.
There's right to the building department.
Right.
There's, two tracks really, right to the building department and then to the planning board, but in 2, part A, part B.
Right.
Part A are projects that seem very straightforward that the subcommittee says, we think this can go ahead. And those projects need to, they still have to go through the same of a public hearing,
Yes.
but they go through all the steps, except presumably it's expedited because the subcommittee has said, this is a no-brainer, let's not, like, I don't know which steps can be advanced or moved quickly, but I guess you go right to a public hearing on some of those projects unless one of the other board members says, no, I think this requires a deeper look or whatever.
Right.
And so just review again, what are the thresholds for determining whether it's on track, right to which of those 3 tracks?
Right. So the threshold is really whether they're also going to require site plan approval, subdivision approval, or special permit approval from this board. If they do, then you'll just hear everything all at once, and then approve both the AHRB portion of the application as well as site plan or special permit. If it's something very specific that wouldn't require formally planning board approval, but only AHRB approval, those will kind of go through the subcommittee process, because those will really focus on.
And is it clear where that line is? I mean, is it the same criteria about how many cubic?
Yes.
The same
Exactly.
set of things that are used now
Right.
to steer things to us?
Yes.
So these might be projects that are below that,
Right.
but are still, they're changing the building significantly enough so that if we had an AHRB, they would be looking at it.
Right, just like a facade change or even like a canopy for a gas station or something. It's not really site plan, but it's
Right.
AHRB.
Right.
And if it goes to the subcommittee, they make a recommendation to the full board, and then we still approve it?
Yeah.
And not approve it?
Right. So
Or not, you could disagree with the subcommittee.
Yeah.
You know, everybody will probably have to look at everything.
Yeah.
Except for the ones that go to the building department. Everybody will have to look at everything and either say, well, we trust our little subcommittee and we're gonna accept whatever they do, or.
Right, and it's important that the subcommittee's not making a decision, but they're making a recommendation.
Right, of course.
Right, so the thought is to try to reduce also the time that maybe the dialogue would require in front of this board at the planning board meeting.
Right. I mean, tonight was an interesting case study in this, right? The house that has not been before the AHRB yet we did a little workaround by putting a thing into the resolution saying, we approve this unless something, but we would have just approved that tonight, right?
Right.
If we didn't have issues with there were issues raised about the change in material, we probably would have ended up having a short discussion about that or whatever.
Right.
But that would have been the end of it, right?
Right.
Right. I mean, we did a workaround at the end, lets them go forward, but they're having projects that have been ping-pong back and forth because of this,
Right.
right?
Yeah, it should streamline those.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I think that's also one of the objectives, is to try to streamline those situations.
Right.
You know, now with the subcommittee, I mean, that's really up to this board. If you feel that you would want to just have the applications just come to this board in the normal process, you could do that. And then if you find that it's taking, too much time of your like planning board meetings and you want to establish a subcommittee, you could do that at that point as well. So it's not something you have to have a subcommittee. I know that there was concern that your agendas become long, the meetings would be long. And so this was one way of a solution to that.
Does the subcommittee require a change in the local law or just the smashing together of the AHRB and the?
Yeah, all of that has to be in the local law, but it would be, I think, at this board's discretion. I think the law would provide that this board has discretion to set up those subcommittees. I think that's how it should be done.
Right.
So it's not required, but it gives you the authority to do that.
Right, and you already have the authority to set up procedures, especially in the AHRB law as written right now.
Okay.
So this would allow you to set up this subcommittee.
And this would bring the village code closer to what I understand as standard practice, where the AHRB is advisory to the planning board in most.
There are a lot of communities where it's just advisory to the planning board.
Okay.
And I'm all for the subcommittee as one of the least, as an engineer, I'm least aesthetic of probably have met most of the people here. So I'm unlikely to be on that board and will appreciate somebody else.
I have a question
doing the
about the
legwork.
subcommittee. Is the subcommittee, the actual people on the board?
Yes.
So we can't say like an architect that's not on this board that they could
Got to be
be,
members of the.
they have to be a member,
They have to be
okay.
appointed.
And how does it get distinguished from the architectural review board? Like, they already have X amount of people. You would go to them and say, would you want to be on this board? Like, how does that work?
I think the village board would make that decision on how they want to approach the AHRB. I mean, the AHRB is aware that, these discussions are taking place. And I think, Dan, you let John know that we were having this meeting and.
He spoke to some of the members already.
Right.
He spoke to the chair, I believe.
Typically, it would be the trustees have the authority to appoint members to boards as they would to this board. You're adding you're adding two more seats to it.
Okay.
Well,
Valerie, would the subcommittee require them to have an architect on it? Because in the guidelines for the AHRB now, that is one of them to have an architect.
No, I think that's a good idea, and I think we can work that in as part of that.
Is there a consultant for the AHRB?
Right now, there's not. no.
But they have the power to refer it to an expert if it really is a historic district.
Right, and the historic
So, Laura,
districts
you're an
come to the
architect.
full board.
I'm not registered, but I am an architect. I mean, I do design work.
we've got more architectural experience on this board than the architectural review board does. I think.
Would it make sense to have an architectural consultant work with the subcommittee?
I don't know necessarily, because it's really supposed to be about excessive dissimilarity, as opposed to, so.
Getting too finicky about it.
Right, so, I mean, if they have concerns with particular, we can always have somebody review and provide comment,
Sure.
but,
And this happened tonight, because that's why I asked the question if you'd been before the AHRB, because most of the comments we heard tonight, or some of them,
It was
were
AHRB.
exactly the kind of
Yes.
comments that I would expect to hear at the AHRB.
Exactly.
But in this new configuration, we would be the ones who would absorb this and either tell the architect, we actually agree with this person from the public or not.
You'd be able to
Do you
speak
have-
on
do you-
behalf of that.
Yeah. Do you know of any villages or towns that have only a planning board and that it has both functions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a number of them, and I can send this board a list of all of those. And we actually, at the very beginning of the process, we looked at a number of communities and looked at what they reviewed or how they reviewed things. Because some communities also exempt like single-family homes, like, and they only review like commercial districts. So it varies on each community.
Yeah.
So I can send that to you, but yes, there are a number of them that do function. in some
Yeah, I
sort
mean,
of
it just,
concept.
it almost seems easier to have this board have both functions because, you know, actually, we have the qualified people here. And we actually talk about it a lot, maybe too much, but.
Well, I'm on board with it streamlining operations.
And the
I
other
think it
thing,
sounds like a good
sometimes-
idea.
Me too.
Sometimes it comes here and you just deal with the massing and then it goes to the HRB and they want to change the roof line or something. And really, some of those should really come back to planning.
Well, if it stayed here.
But it's hard to do that, especially like if they've already approved it, like on that application, if they change the massing, then it will come back, yeah.
I mean, I guess the big issue is whether this board goes from being 5 people to 7.
Why would you, we wouldn't have to do that? I mean, we've got 5 people that are qualified to do both functions.
I'm not, I don't feel strongly about it one way or the other, there may be architects, I mean, I don't know, I haven't polled the people that are on the current AHRB. I know they've had trouble making a quorum, which suggests that there aren't 5 really anxious people to do this. On the other hand, there may be a couple of people who do feel strongly about it and who also are qualified. I mean, they do have, I know Dipti Shavrait is an architect, right, licensed registered architect. And what's the other person whose name I can't remember at the moment, is also a practicing architect. So I don't know if we would want their expertise, the additional expertise that comes with that or not. I don't know.
I mean, if there are talented people who want to participate and, you know, I'm certainly not against, I don't have any good reason to say, you know, we shouldn't go to 7 people.
I mean, we could talk, well, it makes the decision-making a little bit more cumbersome.
I'd like it
It
5.
it could take longer to.
I'd like to stick at 5 if we could.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel that way, but
That's why I was asking about the subcommittees, because I was curious if, you know,
it has to be, no, it's a
If you-
subset of
Yeah, I
whatever
know.
this ends up being.
because if you had, you know, another expertise in there, it may be of assistance with certain projects, I don't know.
But it sounds like it's got to be one of us.
Yeah,
Or
but
some
it
of
has
us,
to be one
right.
of us, yeah.
Yeah.
And back to that, if the subcommittee ran into something where they felt they needed support, there's no reason they can't just come to the full group and say, hey,
Right,
and we have the ability to hire experts as needed,
Yes.
right? So
Yes,
a simple email could, you know, get that going.
yes.
The other thing with more members is if you do want to go the subcommittee route, you're going to have more opportunity for, you know, to be able to cover those little sort of extra meetings, they're phone calls or Zoom calls or whatever, you know, however you're doing it, but you'll have more people who are available to do that. That's, you know, it's a consideration.
Or you could just, you know, where you don't, you know, you can also recommend to the village board not to do the subcommittee and just see if, you know, until such time it's needed.
Can we write it so that, you know, recommend that, you know, we have the power to create a subcommittee? If we choose, if we.
That's what she was saying.
We would do that whether it's 5 members or 7 members. So we, you know, give you the opportunity, I think we would give you the opportunity to decide if you want to proceed with a subcommittee. It could be a subcommittee of 2 or 3, you know.
Right, and if there's no need, I mean, if we don't see the kind of workload or it's gonna save us any time, there's probably no point in the added complexity.
Right.
But, if all of a sudden we have all these complex architectural decisions and we need, it's dragging the meetings on until 11 or 12 o'clock, which we know has happened, then maybe something like that could shave an hour off our monthly meetings and it would be a big help, so.
Right, and I think the town of Mount Pleasant does subcommittees. And Lori Lee reached out to their attorney, and their attorney said that they established it and the rules and procedures based on, like, they passed a resolution, right? So they worked with the planning board, they identified exactly how it was gonna work, they passed a resolution on it, and that's how they established that subcommittee.
Well, if we can be agile about it and just generate it if we think it's gonna be helpful, then what's the downside?
Right, I mean, it could be that, for at least the beginning, you're not getting those smaller matters, or you're dispensing with them quickly. But, down the road, it may be, more complex.
You should also confirm, in terms of this business about blending the boards, I don't know how to do this in whatever politically sensitive way there is, but the five of us need to poll ourselves about how, like, do all of us want to continue on the planning board and for how long? Because if somebody says, well, you know what, I was kind of thinking this was my last year, then, without, then you might invite somebody from the
Right.
HRB to join, to fill that seat.
Mhm. And what is the time frame that is anticipated that this is all gonna kind of happen?
So I think the village board would like us to bring this back to them in September. I think there is a little bit of concern, not that this consolidation is really focused on streamlining and not as a result of the AHRB having quorum issues, but I do think that they're gonna have even more of a difficulty in the next few months because of another member, I believe, might have to leave. So they're looking to get this settled sooner than later.
So what do you need from us to move this forward?
So the village board's looking for feedback from this board as to whether you support the consolidation and if you had any thoughts or comments on the process that we laid out. And if you want to comment on the number of board members, that's fine too. I mean, I think the issue with the 7, or the reason why they were suggesting 7 is to provide this board some opportunity to lighten your load if for some reason you went forward with like the subcommittee group. And again, the expansion of the board from 5 to 7 could be done at a later date as well.
Well, I'm opposed to expanding this board. Just,
I don't feel strongly about it either way. so.
I don't know that I feel that strong about it, but I think overall, I'm in favor of what you have outlined. I mean, if that's what you should ask the others, but I would be in favor of the plan that you've laid out.
Everything I've heard so far, I can support.
And I would support it also, the plan that you've laid out.
And would you suggest that, it sounded like though that the subcommittee, you would prefer to wait before establishing it until such time you need to establish it?
I agree with that.
I think that's the most agile and
If they do that, Valerie, what happens to those applications that I would refer to the subcommittee? It would just go to them and then they would approve it that night?
Well, I mean, so technically HRB does require public hearings,
It could just,
so it would follow the same process as your plan.
as the HRB, they could approve it that night and say, good, or
What would be an
change this.
example of that?
Yeah, do you automatically
Of a
do
side,
public hearings right at the get-go for HRB?
A what?
For-
No public hearing.
There's no public hearings
No.
for HRB, okay, so then yes, they could approve it that night.
Okay. It would be like a facade change on a building, maybe.
They would come to you and then you
And
would
I
say, I need to refer this to
The subcommittee or
the
Or the
planning board.
Okay.
And then, but you just wouldn't have to call for the public hearing, so it would be streamlined. You could look at it and say, yes, we like it, or no, change
But
this.
once it's merged, we would have to call for a public hearing, right? Because every project, no matter how much we try to speed it up, if you refer it to us and the AHRB doesn't exist anymore, we do have to go through the pro forma steps, right, of calling and for a public hearing, hopefully closing it the next.
Does that?
I don't know that you need a public hearing for everything.
I thought, oh, really? So that's a good question, actually. Do we, because we always do it.
It is
Yeah.
a good-
I had never occurred to me.
I think most of everything that's come for you, yeah, you would. I'm not sure,
Because that's site plan.
yeah.
Does the law require?
Right, but if it's an
If it's strictly-
AHRB only
if it's-
function.
If it's strictly a non-site plan matter,
You might not have to call for a
Might not
public
have.
hearing.
Right.
Can we confirm that?
that's, yeah, absolutely.
And what about noticing? You just still have to
They
notice?
still have to notice for the meeting, yes.
Right. So, I mean, I've
That
worked
wouldn't
on,
change.
I've worked on, you know, I used to work for the Village of Ossining, and they had requirements for, like, so sometimes they would approve, like, a site plan, right? And say, we're gonna approve this particular site plan, but we still want you to come back next month and finish tweaking the AHRB, and you can do that, right? You can separate the approvals, so it's not just one, you know, so technically you are giving an architectural review approval, and you are giving like a site plan approval. So there is ways to separate those if for some reason an application still needs some modifications, but they can, you know, but they have their site plan. Typically, everything gets approved all at once, but you can separate.
We can break it up if we
Right.
have to.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it all pans out.
Right, I think in terms of the overall timing though, if you look at, like, for example, 24 Eldridge, they have, they're gonna go see the AHRB this month, right? So technically, you had your public hearing, they're gonna see the AHRB. So instead of them coming back to you in September, really, you would have your public hearing and you would have heard everything all at once. And you
Right.
could have made your decision on both applications. So there would be a little bit, there would definitely be efficiencies in that.
Okay.
And I suppose that in order for us to make these decisions now as this joint board, the things that the applicant is required to submit have to be able to talk to both things, right? The applicant now has to present not just what we would need as a minimum for site plan, but enough information about elevations, materials,
It has
so
to be
whatever
a
they
complete
normally,
application, right, it's not just,
whatever they would submit to the AHRB.
it's not the proposed house no more, it's
It needs to
All
be
at once.
It needs to be
detail.
part of the same submission. package.
One submission, yeah.
Is there a separate application, AHRB application? So they would submit an application for AHRB, application for site plan.
Right, so I
Complete set
think
of
right now
documents.
there's two separate, we could probably combine
Yes.
the additional requirements into the site plan, or that one planning board application
Yeah,
we just
I
created.
I think that'd be the idea, right?
It would be one checklist.
It's all one
And
Oh, yeah.
submit, right.
thing now.
Yeah. Nice.
Or do you want separate application forms? though? I mean, there are planning boards that'll do
What were
wetlands,
they
steep
looking-
slopes,
what
and a
was
site
HRB
plan, there's
looking
three
at?
applications.
Right, so
And
they,
they hear them all together.
Well, it could be
Right.
that you'd have, it could be that you'd have a combined form and maybe a planning-only form, you know, if it
Right.
didn't involve anything like that, or AHRB only, you know,
Yeah.
right,
depending upon what the application is for. If there's no changes to the building, the structure, and it's just the facade, if it's not being approved by Dan, then it just, you know,
If they're not two separate forms, though, would that keep us from breaking it apart if we had to, based on the
No.
discussion we
no,
just
because you
had?
can have them check mark what approvals they're looking for.
Right.
Okay.
in one
Like a
form.
checklist,
Right.
you're,
Right, and then those things will be tweaked, right, because that's the next step. Once we start moving forward, we can start developing the forms, figuring out what would work most streamlined for the applicant and as well as this board.
All right.
Do you have what you need to move forward?
Thanks for doing all that work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll write up an email, like recommend, like a draft memo, send it to this board, make sure everyone's comfortable with it, and that's,
Go
I'll
to
send
the-
it over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
This issue came up the first time that Pace University professor came and looked at our.
John Nolan?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's been twice, and I remember him bringing this whole issue up the first time he came.
Long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I move we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?